back to my channel Katie from Katie, and today in this video we'll be talking about integration of Kong with Keycloak. In this Katie, what I'll show you is I'll create a custom plugin which I'll write in Lua, and it will call introspect API of Keycloak, and only upon the successful introspection of the token, access to an API will be given. So we'll go ahead and see how that will be done. Talking about Kong, Kong is basically an API gateway. That's an API gateway basically is something that sits between your client and backend system, providing you with a central place to manage and control access to multiple microservices or APIs. With an API gateway in place, you can configure all security and authorization in one place and enable it on whichever service you require, and that's what we'll see in this KT. And you can further go ahead and explore about API gateway. It is one of the major building block of any architecture. Okay, so proceeding with Kong, considering its most widely populated API gateway, we'll be using that, and for our authentication or securing our API, we'll be using Keycloak, which is also one of the most popular identity management tool. I have also talked about Keycloak in one of my videos. You can go ahead and click on the link displayed above and further see a demo of SSO feature of Keycloak, and you will be intrigued to explore it more. Okay, not talking about this. This KT, since Kong Enterprise Edition already comes with an OIDC plugin, this is the OIDC plugin, OpenID Connect, and it is pretty easy to configure. You have to basically configure these 4 parameters: config, issuer, client ID, and secret ID. And you can select tick any of the option that if you want to introspect or a browser based integration, you can do everything with OpenID Connect. It is a full-fledged. You can integrate Keycloak. The browser based integration also can be done. The only introspection or any other things, all is there mentioned here. If you check that, so these are the things that can be done. Okay, but we'll be focusing on this introspection part because writing code of everything is tough for me, and it's most of the time we just need introspection because we are just validating the token. Login will be controlled by the front and the back end. Okay, so let's talk and considering our Kong, we cannot sometimes we cannot afford Enterprise Edition, so I'll be giving this demo in Kong community version, and since OIDC plugin is not present, we'll have to create our own custom plugin. And if you want to further go ahead and do the full-fledged integration that is done by this OpenID Connect in Kong's Enterprise Edition, you can further go ahead and explore this Kong Nokia OIDC plugin. If you want a video on this, how to integrate this, drop me a comment, I'll create one. Okay, but you can go ahead, all the steps I mentioned here, you can further go ahead and do it on your own. Okay, in case you need my help, do drop a comment. We'll be doing this integration by writing our own plugin, and we will be focusing only on introspection API. Okay, and for admin UI, we will be using Konga. Thanks to the OS community for building this free UI. I like it, I love it. Most importantly, it's free and open source. So yeah, you can go ahead and contribute to this, buy them a coffee. Let's proceed. We'll be doing this KT on Docker. So we install Docker. Go ahead and click in it. Since I'm using Mac, I've used this link. You can go ahead, in case you have a Silicon chip, download this. In case of Intel chip, download this one. Okay. Once Docker is done and it's installed, you can further go ahead and install Kong and Konga. This is the link I have provided for Kong, and you just have to create a Kong network, then post egress SQL controller. Just copy this command. After installing, run the Docker container. As you can see, my Docker container is up, and Kong gateway and Kong database, all the 3 are up. In your case, initially the containers will not be there. You will have to start by pulling these images. First you have to create a Kongnet, then you have to create a Kong database. It will pull the image Postgres 13 and further run it after pulling, and then you can prepare the Kong database to connect to Kong, and then in the last step, that is the 5th step, you are running the Kong gateway. Okay, Once you have run all these three commands, my Kong gateway is 3.5.01 version. Okay, so this is my Kong gateway 3.5.01. So once you have done this configuration, your Kong will be up, and you can just check this using this admin API of Kong. If you have configured Kong correctly, you will be getting this API will be up and running, and you will be able to see in the Docker itself, in the containers part of it, the Conga will be there, and Kong gateway and Kong database will be there. Okay, once this is done, we can go ahead and install Conga. So for Conga also, the link is given here. Just open this. I'm not showing it again because downloading the images takes some time, and I do not want to do that. But in case you have some issue in doing this, installing or downloading or anything related to it, and if you're not able to solve on your own, just drop me a comment, I'll help you out. But it's very simple. Just copy this command, just pull the image. This is used to pull the image of Conga. Once the image is pulled, just copy and run this command. This mention the network which you created for Kong, and node environment I started with development, and token secret just put any random string. Okay, so it will whatever the image you have pulled, it is being Docker is running this. So this command simply, if you are not aware of what Docker is, it will simply help you run images and everything. If you need a video, you can just search and or drop me a comment, I'll create one. Okay, so just run this command, and your Conga will be up and running. Now, in my case, I have done these two steps are done. So let's just check that out. Our Conga is by default up on 1337 port. Okay, and we have checked Kong already, it's running. Now I have to link this the Kong I just created and started with this Conga dashboard. So what you have to do is you just go to the connection section and just type a unique name, say Kong local, and paste a URL. Since it's running on localhost, you can simply use this command. Sorry, this host docker internal. Okay, just copy this. I'll just copy this and I'll create a connection. Okay, the connection is created. Okay, and just activate it. Once I activated, as you can see, there are multiple things gets visible, that is roots, consumer, plugins. There are by default certain plugins available in this Kong's community version. You can check out these plugins here, such as basic key auth, auto, HMAC auth, JWT, LDAP auth, session, etc. You do not have, like you can see, you do not have OIDC plugin present here, but if you have enterprise edition, that is there. You can simply add that plugin, and if you want to add, simply just click on any plugin and you have to just configure. In case of your that OIDC plugin, you'll have to configure client ID, client secret ID, and the introspection URL. Okay, in our case, we'll create one custom plugin. So our custom plugin will be seen here in others. Currently you can see there are certain plugins already present. Okay, so our Kong is up, Conga is up, and both are connected. Okay, now moving on to creating a service. So we will be securing one of the APIs, and I'll be taking help of Spring Boot, and I have already created. You can configure any other API as well. I have made a simple Spring Boot application and a user controller. In that I have a get API. I simply start this. I'll show you the API which I've configured for this. Okay, let's check that out in Postman section. So get. Okay, so my local is my IP is this, so that's the reason mentioned here. So as you can see, I am getting a response of this. This is the same API which we will secure. So let's just go to service section of the same, add a new service, and this say user service. Okay, and host, you can write host dot, just copy this host docker, and because it's running on localhost, simply use this. Okay, or port of the, this is 9081, right? This is running on 9081 port. It's already running, that's the reason this is failing. I have already switched it on one of the 9081 port. Okay, just copy this port and I'll create the service. Service is created, hosted this. Let's just add a route. Just go to the service, and here you can see there's a route section. Add a route. This, right, user API, and just switch off the strip path and host the SME. Just mention the path. The path is this API users, right? We'll just copy it and mention it here. Okay, that's how I mentioned, and just submit this route. Okay, now this is my, now I've configured the route. Let's just check that out. So my API uses up at 9081. After configuring this route, this API should be available on this 800 port as well. Sorry. Okay, so this is available at 800 port as well. Okay, so that's how we know we have configured this by, and if you want to check that, if, let's just cancel this and write maybe a wrong API to make sure. Now let's just try to hit this. Sorry, I have not saved it. Now if you hit this API, it will say no route found. Okay, because there is no such user one route. And now suppose you are saying ki, okay fine, I have configured users one route, just give me that. It will still say, because there is, it's not able to find this API. And let's just change that in the right one, that is API users. It will start working again. Okay, okay, sorry. Okay, so as you can see, I got the response by 800 port, which is the Kongs port. Okay, so what we have done till now is we have installed our Konga, connected the two, and we have configured a API to be used via Kong portal. So if your basically if your front end wants to use this API, you have to basically give this particular API to your front end, and your actual address or IP of the microservice or any API is hidden, and multiple microservices. So suppose this was a user microservice, if there is another microservice as well, you don't have to tell your front end or your client ki, okay, call this API now. Your API will be common, only the routes will keep changing. Okay, and all the configurations and everything you can manage in a central place. So that's how API gateway does it. Okay, you can simply create another service or another route for another microservice. You can go ahead and depending on, and you can pick any plugin you want. So suppose on one particular plugin you want a basic auth, and to tell ki, okay fine, I want a basic auth in this plugin, you can simply add it, and that will done. If you want some certain monitoring, specific monitorings, you can do that as well by adding a plugin. Okay, any transformation, you have to do any transformation. By transformation we mean if you want to change the request or do something related to, you can do that as well. So that's it, we have done the setup till here. Now we'll further move on to creating the main part of it, that is creating the custom plugin for a Keycloak integration. So for that, To create a custom plugin, we have to create two Lua files, and the documentation of how to create a custom plugin is mentioned here, and you can further go ahead and check out all the details and all the specific prerequisite that is needed, or how the format of it should be from here in this link. To give you a nutshell on that, you have to create basically two Lua files, schema.lua and handler.lua. Schema.lua will, in which we will specify the configuration parameter that can be set by the user when configuring the plugin. So basically, in our introspection case, our client ID and client secret ID can be different for different API. So suppose our API gateway is being used by two different front end, and one front end is known by a client ID say ABC, and another front end is known by a client ID say XYZ, and that's the reason this parameter needs to be configurable. It can be changed. So any parameter that is susceptible to change depending on the service, that is generally part of the configuration parameter. So if you want to change the Keycloak or any auth server also, depending on whatever the microservice you are trying to access, then also the introspection URL will also change. So that's the reason there are three configuration parameters: Keycloak, introspection URL and client ID and secret ID for this plugin. You can change if in your case these three parameters do not change depending on microservice. What you can do is you can have no configurations for the same. That's how you can create a schema.lua file. In our case, there are three configurations, that is Keycloak, introspection, client ID and the secret ID. Okay, so moving on to handler.lua. So handler.lua is the second file that you'll have to create, and it will contain the actual login of the plugin, which will define how the Kong should handle the request and responses when the plugin is applied. Okay, so to talking about schema.lua, that's how it's created. You will tell ki, okay, this is the schema type defs, and once you have defined the type defs, you can basically tell ki, okay, this will be the name of the plugin name, and these are the fields. Consumer is not mandatory, protocol is say HTTP if you want HTTP protocol, and configuration will contain all the configuration field. Okay, and you can specify ki, okay, it's string or boolean or any other parameter. There are 6 to 7 types of parameters that can be defined, such as boolean, array and many other. Okay, so you can further go ahead in this documentation, check that out, and you can configure. Since this is a URL, so hence I'm doing this certain thing. Now creating a handler.lua file. Now handler.lua file will look something like this, and I have attach that in this link as well. You can just simply copy it to explain you this file. This is the access function basically. In this, what it is doing, whenever your plugin is called, this function will be called, and it is picking from your variables authorization. This authorization, whatever the field is there in the authorization, it is being picked from there. And if your access token is not empty, then if access token is not present, it is saying ki access token is not found, just exit and return HTTP unauthorized. And if it is found, it will further proceed, and it will check the and it will find all the local body and etc., and it will make a call to introspection area by using this HTTPC. Okay, so it will create a new HTTP context, and further it will make a call by using that. And you can log in case there is some error or something related to it. You can log by using ngest log, and notice is by default Kong prints in the Docker the notice level log, so that's the reason notice is written here. You can configure your debug levels. Generally it is debug. I have just configured it for like a one go process. In production you have to configure it into debug mode, otherwise unnecessary logs will be present, and obviously you have to check out what you should log and what you should not. I am logging everything because initially I was checking this plugin out. Okay, if you get a response, then further you can it is proceeded in the next step. If you do not get a response, it is giving you an internal server error. And for Keycloak, if you are aware of Keycloak, if you are not aware, just go through the Keycloak demo videos which I have provided, and you will find that in the token there is an active flag. Token can be valid, but at times your session gets expired, or you basically maybe hit a logout button. So your access token expiry time is still there, but that access token is no longer valid. So in that case, to avoid authenticating those customers, there is an active flag present. Okay, so this is what it is present, and you can basically check whether an access token is active or not. And then further, if you want to basically set some certain header, so in this case I'm setting header, say X user ID. If you don't want to set any field, you can simply do that using this. Okay, files, which are the mandatory files whenever creating plugin for Kong. We have to install this plugin so that it's available and we can configure it on a particular service or route. Okay, so to do that, these two files which I have created, you have to basically, what you have to do is you have to go ahead and create a folder with the plugin name. So create a folder. Okay, so this folder you have to create. It's already created in my case, and just move to that folder. And you have to copy the contents of handler.lua and schema.lua. Okay, so to show you that this is the same content which is present in the gist provided. Okay, and in handler and the schema.lua. So these are the only two mandatory files. There are other files as well you can create, but these two are mandatory. Okay, and you can check that out in the documentation part. The file structure, if you go ahead and check out the file structure here, you will be able to see these two files are mandatory files. Other files are api.lua, they are not required. Okay, yes is only for these two, and you can check out the details, what is the purpose of other Lua files. Okay, moving on, we have to install the plugin now. So to install the plugin, we will have to do two steps basically. One is to copy this particular Keycloak introspection, which is present in our local directory, to the directly that will be available to our Kong container. And the second step is you have to tell your Kong configuration to notify that there is a custom plugin present along with the bundle plugin. Okay, and then update the Kong configuration file. And once you do that, you have to restart the Kong. So these are the three steps that we'll follow. Okay, first copy this command. Okay, and you have to basically mention the path. So in our case, the path is users Kritika, Keycloak introspection, and our container name is Kong gateway. Okay, so you can see successfully copied 6.14 KB to this particular file. Okay, once you do that, you have to basically create a kong.conf and do the same for that as well. We've already created that. So as you can see, as written plugins bundle and Keycloak introspection and log level has debug. You can change that depending on your needs, the log level. Okay, now you have to copy this conf as well. My Kong, I do not have a Kong container, so that's the reason it's giving an error. Just do that. Okay, it is copied. Okay, so to tell you what we did here is in the installing plugin, it's saying you can use LuaRox also, but it will take some time and there are multiple more configuration that needs to be taken care of if we go by this route. So I am going by the easiest possible route for this demo. Okay, so I am doing this manual installation, that is this step manually. Okay, so that's the reason I'm copying the path. There is another, if you are doing creating using this LuaRox, then what you can do is you can you have to update the Lua package path as well, but I'm simply just copying to the plugin path and just enabling that by loading that in this folder. So these are the two steps which I followed, and once I do that, I have to restart the Kong container. Okay, so for that I'll do docker Kong restart. Docker restart Kong gateway. Okay, so it's restarted. What we'll do is we'll check the admin API. So this is the admin API. I'll copy that. You can no need to copy, basically the localhost 801, that's the admin API. Just send it. As you can see, you'll get certain response to check your plugin whether it's loaded or not. Just check. So as you can see, it's loaded and the values inside the loaded plugin, you can see Keycloak introspection. So now what we'll do is our plugin is successfully loaded. Now we'll proceed with further steps, that is connecting your plugin with protecting your microservice or API with this plugin. Okay, so to do that, first you have to start Keycloak. Okay, to start Keycloak, you can simply write this command. Okay, so for hostname I am mentioning host.docker.nil because it's local host, and since my containers are in Docker, and Keycloak, I'll run Keycloak in non-dockerized mode, so that's the reason to help Kong identify it, I'm using this hostname. And also issuer should be same while generating token, so this is also one of the reasons. Okay, so let's just start our Keycloak basically. Okay, so up at 808 port, simply log in by whatever the admin user you have set. So your Keycloak is up and running, and I have created a test realm, and taking some time, and my client for Kong is Kong client URI. So these are the configuration which I will be required while configuring the plugin. Okay, so that's the reason I'm showing you that. And in this client there is one user, that is ABC user, and this is the same user for which we'll generate the token and introspect it further. Okay, so moving on to checking this API. So this is the login API, and if I try to log in, a token will be generated. Okay, so this is the token, and this is the introspect API. I'll just copy the client ID and so active is false because this token is not valid. In case we have a valid token, we'll get active flag as true. So this is the flag which I was talking about while I was creating that handler function. Sorry, pretty. Let's just copy it and introspect it now. In case the token is valid, we'll get active as true. Okay, and if I do any alteration to it, so our response is always 200, right? So you can see here 200. So if we'll just take care by only status code, it will not work. That's the reason active flag is also required. And there are many validation to make this flag true, checking the issuer of the token and many other. Okay, so moving on, we now have our Keycloak up and running. We have to configure the plugin. We'll use the admin API for that. This is the API, add plugin API. And here what I am as you can see, this is the user service, the service which we created initially. That's the same service, and plugins is the API by which you can add plugin. My plugin name is Keycloak introspection, and I'm adding the introspection URL has this. What I'll do is I'll just copy from here. Okay, and I'll add my client secret ID as well. I will configure the client ID from the UI. So as of now, I'm just creating the plugin. As you can see, the response was successfully and our plugin was created. Let's just move to Conga UI, and here
in the plugin section you'll be able to see the plugin, and if you go ahead and check out the service, that is this service, you will be able to see the plugin is there enabled here. And you can further go ahead and change the client id to check what the default value which you put in our configurations while creating the schema.lua. You can check that out here. Okay, I'll change it to my client id, that is Kong client. Okay, so I'll just copy the name from here, from the introspect API itself. Okay, and just copy it here and submit changes. Okay, that's done. Now simply sorry now simply if I try to access this API, it is saying 401 authorization required because I am not sending token. Now what I'll do is I'll simply copy the token from here, the login API, and sorry, this was wrong, I guess this was right. I'll copy from here. This is the valid token. I'll copy from here and I'll put it in the header of the API so as to tell ki okay, I am an authenticator user and I have token, so please grant me an access. So I'll just copy this and I'll paste it in the header section of okay. So I successfully got the response. So if there is some error in the token or token is being manipulated, this access to this API will be restricted. So, and you can enable and disable the plugin on this route just by toggling this button. Yeah, one more thing I had to highlight. In the plugin sections, if you add a global plugin, in other section I was not able to see the Kong plugin because of the latest version which I installed. But if I update it to the previous version, that is the version which I tested previously, I was able to. What I'll do is I'll show you that as well. So just stop. I'm stopping this. So this is 2.1.4 Alpine version. Okay, so I'll just start this. Okay, now let's move on to, and I have done the same steps here on. The only difference is in the previous version this was not mandatory parameter, and in the latest version this is the mandatory parameter. Okay, so let's just check that out. In the connection section you will see the version is updated. Okay, now we'll check the plugin. Let's just go to add global plugin and go to others, and you will be able to see the Keycloak introspection API. Okay, and you can add plugin from here and details etc from here. Okay, so that's it. That's what we have covered in this KT. So to give you a summary of that, we started by creating the plugin. The two mandatory files that was required for the plugin was schema.lua and handler.lua. Once we have created that, we copied that introspection folder, Keycloak introspect plugin folder, to the path where all the plugins of Kong are. Once we did it, we updated Kong's configuration and in order to tell it ki okay, I have a custom plugin, please load it during the startup. And then I've copied the once update of that configuration, I've copied that configuration back to the container. And once I've done that, I have reloaded the Kong by restarting it. And then further I have started the Kong and I have protected my API using Keycloak. So yeah, that's it for this demo. If you have any doubts or you can drop me a comment, I'll answer it. Okay, thank you.